The restaurant was packed with laughter, silverware, and expensive perfume. But in the middle of that noise, an old white man stood trembling, his cloudy eyes scanning the tables. "Please, can someone help me? I can't remember how to get home." No one even looked up. Plates clattered. Forks kept cutting into $70 steaks. Across the room, Keisha Washington, a 28-year-old black waitress finishing a double shift, froze. The man's voice cracked like her grandfather's once had. The same lost tone that meant fear, not madness. Her tray shook slightly as she whispered, "Sir, are you okay?" The manager, Ryan Cole, appeared before the old man could answer. "Sir, this is a private dining area," Ryan said, smiling for the guests but not for the man. "You're disturbing our customers. Please leave." The veteran blinked, confusion washing over his face. "I served in Vietnam. My wife always picks me up here." Ryan sighed. "Security will escort you out." Keisha set her tray down. "He's clearly disoriented, Ryan. Let me call someone for him." Ryan's smile vanished. "Keisha, get back to your section. He doesn't belong here." Heads turned. Whispering started. Someone muttered, "That old guy must be homeless." The veteran's hands shook harder. Keisha stepped forward, blocking Ryan's hand. "Sir, what's your name?" The old man blinked again. William Hartwell." Ryan snorted. "Right, and I'm the president." "Keisha, last warning." She ignored him, gently taking the man's hand. "Come sit down, Mr. Hartwell. We'll figure out together." Gasps rippled through the tables. Ryan barked, "You're done here, Keisha?" But she didn't flinch, just tightened her grip on the old man's trembling fingers as if holding on to something sacred. If this already made your blood boil, hit like and subscribe right now, because stories like this are still happening and the world needs to hear them. The restaurant went silent except for the hum of tension. Ryan's face reddened. "Fina, you want to play social worker? You're fired." Keisha's heart pounded, but she helped William into a booth, her voice calm. "It's okay, sir. We'll find your family." In that single moment, the air shifted. Compassion dared to stand where cruelty reigned. The moment Ryan stormed back toward the kitchen, murmurs spread like wildfire. Wealthy couples leaned closer, whispering behind napkins, eager to see how far the waitress rebellion would go. Keisha's heart hammered, but her face stayed composed as she helped William sip a glass of water. Ryan returned with a forced grin, his voice dripping with false charm. "Mr. Hartwell, is it? We'll have security escort you outside where you can wait comfortably." The man blinked, lost again. "My wife. She always finds me here." Keisha met Ryan's glare head-on. His wife might already be looking for him. "Let's call the police or a hospital hotline." Ryan leaned in close, his whisper sharp as broken glass. "Do you enjoy ruining your career, Keisha? This is not a charity." Her jaw tightened. "Then maybe it should be." A few waiters froze mid-step. One whispered, "She's gonna get herself blacklisted." But others stared at Keisha with something new, respect. Even the bartender paused, hand on a bottle, waiting to see what courage looked like. William clutched his jacket. "I had medals for bravery, but I can't remember where they went." Keisha's eyes softened. "That's okay, Mr. Hartwell. I believe you." She brushed the dust off his sleeve like she was polishing dignity itself. Ryan slammed his tablet onto the counter. "This is ridiculous. He's trespassing." "Then call the cops," Keisha said calmly, "and tell them you threw out a lost veteran with Alzheimer's." A nearby couple gasped. Someone whispered, "Did she say Alzheimer's?" Ryan froze, realizing every guest's phone was now recording. "You think you're smart?" he hissed quietly. "No," she said, turning to the trembling man beside her. "I think he deserves better." The old veteran's confusion flickered into brief clarity. "You were kind. My martyr was kind." Her throat tightened, but she smiled. "Then I'm honored to remind you of her." Ryan clenched his fists, fighting the humiliation of losing control in front of wealthy patrons. "Keisha, clock out. Right now." She exhaled slowly. "When my shift ends." Not before. A hush fell over the restaurant, the kind that follows a gunshot nobody heard. For the first time, it wasn't Keisha who looked afraid. It was Ryan, staring at a woman who refused to bow. The restaurant lights felt harsher now. every reflection bouncing off polished glasses like judgment. Ryan's voice cut through the whispers. "Security's on its way, Keisha. I said you're finished here." But Keisha didn't move. She sat beside William, her hand steady on his shoulder. "Mr. Hartwell, do you remember anyone I can call?" His brows knitted. "Margaret. She always knew where to find me." The way he said her name made the air ache. Keisha smiled softly. "We'll get you back to her soon, okay?" Ryan slammed a folder onto the counter. "That's it. Pack your things. You're officially terminated." "Terminated for showing compassion?" she asked, her tone calm but unshakable. Ryan leaned close, his breath sour with anger. "Terminated for disobedience." "Guess stop pretending to eat." A woman whispered. "He's really firing her?" A man across the room muttered. "Over-helping an old veteran? That's cold." Keisha stood, straightened her apron, and met Ryan's eyes. "My shift ends in 15 minutes. Until then, I'm still your employee. And right now, I'm helping a lost human being." Ryan's jaw tightened. "You think this will make you some kind of hero?" She shook her head. "No, just decent." William's trembling hand reached for hers again. "You remind me of my daughter. She always stood up to people like this." Keisha smiled faintly. Then she raised your right. Ryan turned toward a waiter filming the scene. "Turn that off." But it was too late. Half the restaurant already had their phones out. Keisha looked straight into Ryan's eyes. "The world's watching now, not just your rich customers." Ryan's face burned red. "You'll never work in this city again." Her voice stayed steady. "If standing up for a veteran cost me my job, then I'll find one that values humanity." Security arrived, two uneasy guards glancing between them. But before they could move, William whispered, "You don't have to protect me, miss." Keisha bent down to his level. "Yes, I do, because no one else here will." A hush fell again. The guards lowered their hands. Ryan turned away, humiliated by silence louder than any protest. Keisha guided William out toward the door, her heart pounding not with fear, but with purpose. Behind them, the restaurant's applause began, soft at first, then swelling, like the sound of something finally breaking free. If this happened right in front of you, what would you do? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone. And if you want justice as much as I do, hit subscribe. The night air outside the restaurant was cool, silent except for the soft hum of passing cars. Keisha guided William across the parking lot, his steps unsteady but his trust in her complete. "Don't worry," she said gently. "We'll find your family, I promise." They stopped beside a bench under the streetlight. William sat down, breathing heavily. "My wife, she always said I wander when I'm tired," he murmured. Keisha smiled faintly. "That's okay, sir. You're safe now." She took out her phone to search for local shelters or hospitals, hoping to find a missing person report. As she helped him adjust his jacket, she noticed a glint on his wrist, a gold watch, engraved and worn smooth with time. She leaned closer. The inscription read, "William and Margaret, 50 years together." Her eyes widened. "That's no cheap watch," she whispered. When William reached into his inner pocket, a cracked leather wallet fell onto the bench. Keisha carefully picked it up. Inside were credit cards, a faded military ID, and a business card. William J. Hartwell, founder, Hartwell Industries. She blinked in disbelief. "You're that William Hartwell?" He looked puzzled. "Was I important?" Her heart raced. "Sir, you're a billionaire. The news talked about you going missing last year." He frowned, lost in thought. "I built houses, hospitals. People said thank you." Keisha covered her mouth. "Oh my God." Everything clicked. The expensive watch, his posture, the quiet authority in his voice. She typed his name on her phone. Within seconds, headlines appeared. William Hartwell, 72, diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Family offers $100,000 reward for safe return. Keisha gasped, reading aloud. "They're still looking for you." Her phone buzzed. It was Marcus, her cousin, and a lawyer. "You okay?" "That video's already spreading online." Keisha texted back. "I'm with him. He's real. I think this just turned into something bigger." She turned to William, eyes softening. "You're not alone anymore, Mr. Hartwell." He smiled faintly. "Thank you, dear. Margaret would have liked you." Keisha took a deep breath and whispered, "Tomorrow, that manager will know exactly who he threw out." She opened her camera, recording her own statement, calm, steady, fearless. "It's March 15th, 10:47 p.m. My name is Keisha Washington. I was fired tonight for helping a lost elderly man with Alzheimer's." Then she looked directly into the lens. "And I'm not done yet." The next morning, sunlight poured through the glass windows of the premium steakhouse like nothing had happened. Inside, Ryan strutted around with fake confidence, bragging to anyone who'd listen. "I told her she'd regret it," he said, smirking as he poured himself coffee. "Now she's unemployed, and we're safe from drama." He didn't know his drama was already viral. Overnight, Keisha's calm defiance had been shared on every local page. "Fired for helping a veteran." The headline was everywhere. Comments flooded in. "This manager should be ashamed. Someone find that waitress and give her a medal." Meanwhile, Keisha sat in her cousin Marcus's office downtown, the morning news replaying the footage she'd recorded. "You realize this is evidence," Marcus said, scrolling through the video. "Good," Keisha replied, eyes steady. "Because I'm pressing charges for wrongful termination and discrimination." Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered softly. "Hello. Is this Keisha Washington?" A woman's voice asked, trembling. "Yes, who's speaking?" "This is Elizabeth Hartwell. You were with my father last night. You found him." Keisha's breath caught. "He's safe. He's resting in my apartment. He remembered your name." Elizabeth's voice cracked with relief. "Thank you. We've been searching for hours. My driver's outside your building. Please don't move." Minutes later, a black car pulled up. Elizabeth stepped out, elegant, mid-40s, eyes swollen from crying. The moment she saw her father sitting by the window, she ran to him. "Daddy!" William smiled weakly. "Margaret!" Tears streamed down her face. "No, Daddy, it's Elizabeth. You're home now." Keisha stood back, quietly wiping her own eyes. Elizabeth turned to her. "You stayed with him all night?" "Yes, ma'am. He deserved better than what that restaurant gave him." Elizabeth exhaled shakily. "Please tell me everything." When Keisha finished recounting the night, Elizabeth's face darkened. "He called my father a bum? Fired you for helping him?" Keisha nodded. "And he filmed it." Elizabeth's jaw set. "Good, because now we'll film him." She dialed a number. "Mark, it's Elizabeth Hartwell. Bring your crew. We're doing that expose on discrimination today at the premium steakhouse." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" Elizabeth looked at Keisha. "Completely. And I want you standing beside me." Keisha hesitated. "Are you sure? I'm not used to cameras." Elizabeth smiled coldly. "Neither is he. Let's change that." By the time the restaurant's noon crowd began arriving, 3 black SUVs were parked outside. Ryan adjusted his tie, unaware of what was coming, when the glass doors opened. And in walked Elizabeth, William, Marcus, and Keisha. Behind them, a news crew rolled in, cameras humming, lights flashing. Ryan's confident grin evaporated. What is this?" Elizabeth's voice cut through the room like steel. "This, Mr. Cole, is your reckoning." The restaurant froze. Every waiter stopped moving. Every guest stopped chewing. Ryan's smirk faltered when he saw the camera crew spreading lights across the marble floor. Elizabeth Hartwell stood tall in a dark blue suit, her father beside her, leaning gently on Keisha's arm. Ryan forced a laugh. "Mrs. Hartwell, one unexpected." Elizabeth cut him off, voice low but sharp. "It's Miss Hartwell, and I believe you know my father, the man you threw out like trash." Gasps rippled through the crowd. William looked up, his voice trembling but clear. "You were the one who called me a bum." Ryan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Sweat gathered at his temple. I didn't know who he was," he stammered. Elizabeth's eyes blazed. "You didn't have to. You just had to be human." The cameras caught every word, every twitch of fear on Ryan's face. Keisha stood silently beside her, calm and composed, watching the man who once yelled over her now shrink in front of the world. A reporter stepped forward. "Mr. Cole, we're live. Would you like to explain why you fired an employee for helping a confused elderly man?" Ryan's voice cracked. "It was a misunderstanding. Keisha finally spoke, her voice soft but deadly steady. A misunderstanding is forgetting someone's order. What you did was heartless. The room went silent except for the hum of the broadcast camera. Elizabeth pulled a file from her bag and laid it on a nearby table. I've already sent copies of this video to our legal department. You'll be receiving notice of 2 lawsuits, one for discrimination and one for defamation. Ryan swallowed hard. Please, Miss Hartwell, I can fix this. I didn't mean. William raised his hand, interrupting him. You didn't mean to care. That single line hit like a hammer. The crowd murmured. A woman whispered, "Did you hear that?" Mark, the reporter, turned to the camera. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching a live confrontation where kindness defeated arrogance. Ryan's phone buzzed violently. He answered it with shaking hands. "Mr. Cole," said the icy voice on the other end. "You're fired. Pack your things." He froze. "Sir." The line went dead. Elizabeth turned to Keisha. "Would you like to say something before we leave?" Keisha faced the cameras, her voice warm but firm. "I didn't help him for a reward. I did it because someone had to. The uniform doesn't make you better than anyone. It just gives you a choice to do the right thing." Applause erupted across the restaurant. Ryan lowered his head, the weight of humiliation heavier than any paycheck he'd ever chased. As the cameras panned over him, Elizabeth's final words sealed the moment. "This restaurant will rebuild its reputation, but your name, Mr. Cole, never will." And with that, she turned and walked out, her father smiling faintly beside her, Keisha following just behind, the woman who had rewritten the story in silence and strength. 6 months later, a soft breeze fluttered through the white ribbons tied outside a new building in downtown Atlanta. A large banner read, Hartwell Alzheimer Support Center, founded by Keisha Washington. Reporters gathered as Keisha stood beside William and Elizabeth, scissors in hand, the flash of cameras glinting off her calm smile. "This center," she began, "exists because one night, kindness was treated like rebellion." The crowd went quiet. She looked toward William, who now appeared healthier, his confusion gentler, his eyes brighter. "That night," he said, his voice slow but sure, "she saw a man when everyone else saw a burden." Applause rippled through the street. Keisha smiled at him warmly. "You saved me too, Mr. Hartwell. You reminded me what real courage looks like." The ribbon fell, and the building came to life, volunteers, doctors, and families stepping inside. A journalist asked, "Ms. Washington, what did you do with the settlement you received from the lawsuit?" Keisha replied simply, "I turned cruelty into care. Every penny went into this place." Inside the center, framed photographs lined the hallways, smiling families, veterans, caregivers. One plaque read, "Dedicated to every unseen act of compassion." Elizabeth placed a hand on Keisha's shoulder. "My father says good people recognize good people. I think he's right." Keisha smiled. "Then we'll keep proving him right, one story at a time." Across town, Ryan Cole sat in a cramped one-bedroom apartment, watching the grand opening on his flickering TV. His phone buzzed again with unknown numbers, but this time no one was offering him a job. Only interview requests asking how it felt to be the face of corporate discrimination. He turned the screen off and stared at the dark reflection of his own choices. Back at the center, William took Keisha's hand, his grip still strong despite the tremor. "Sometimes," he said softly, "angels don't wear wings, they wear aprons." She laughed gently. "Then maybe kindness is our real uniform." As the sun dipped behind the new building, Keisha looked up at the sign one more time. For the first time in years, she felt peace. Not because she won, but because she'd built something that would outlast every injustice. If you believe this should never happen again, share this now. And to my USA, UK, and Canadian viewers, your voice is power. Use it. The camera faded on her smiling face, the light catching the gold nameplate that read, Director Keisha Washington.